Let's see. There we go. And okay, it is Friday. TGIF. Thank God it's Friday. I know a lot of you at work are just dying for the weekend, so you cannot go to the office. But anyway, thank God it's Friday, and welcome to the Diana Wright Show live. We have our special guest with us this morning, Dax Dunn. We did not kind of get our Skype thing going on, but anyway, we'll be better next week. We'll definitely have him live next week on, so you can actually see him and what he's doing. Okay. All right. But what we're going to do is every Friday, we're going to go through, as I've been doing, go through all the big stories that I call them wow big on the show, the stories that impressed me the most, the stories that made me really say wow, or this is big, or, you know, whatever it is. So we're going to call it Wow Big Friday, and we're going to have our special guest every week with us to give us his opinion and some of the stories that I talk about. But before we get to that, we just want to remind you that the crusade of the program, you must be tired of hearing it by now, but I'm not going to stop until I get each and every one of you to love yourself. Because all the problems, all the gun shooting, all the depression stems and I can't even believe it. It's just 3 little words. I love me. How easy that flows off your tongue. You can't even forget it because it's so easy to remember. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through some of the stories. I want to start off with welcoming Dax to the program and thank him so much for joining us, and welcome you from around the world and in the United States. Hey, Dax, welcome to the show.
Hi, Diana. Hi.
Yeah, I'm so sorry I'm not seeing you, but anyway, I'm sad.
No, don't be sad, because you know what? This is a progression. So for those who are interested in seeing me, they'll have to tune in next week.
Okay.
Because you know what I think is going to happen next week? Your computer expert is going to, not next week, by the end of the day, she'll be home, she'll be able to just...
Yes, my expert, my daughter.
Right?
She's the iPad expert, the laptop expert, and everything here. And anything I need to fix on the Apple, she's the one to fix her app. She's the only person in here that is versed on the Apple. Not even Lloyd is good at it. Okay, so...
I tell you, I actually believe that we have 2 cultures.
Uh-huh.
Or 3.
Okay.
We have those who have no clue, and they can barely use a cell phone to just dial a number. and then there are people like me and you who struggle with it, but we're connected, but we struggle.
Yes, I do struggle. I'm admitting it. I raised my hand. I am not technical, okay? I'm doing very good because, believe me, I have a whole lot of equipment in front of me that I've had to learn how to use.
Yeah. And then there are the young kids. Mm-hmm. It's almost unnatural to them. I mean,
yeah.
I live with a 5-year-old, and he is a genius.
Okay, so we need to get him as our consultant.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. Let me just start off by kind of speaking about the story that really got me to tears this week. Is a story that was most recent. It was yesterday when President Obama was actually in Israel and he received the Medal of Distinction, which is the highest civilian honor that can be bestowed on anyone. And he got it. And when I heard President Sharon Perez, talk about Barack Obama and how good he is and how he has unprecedented level of friendship, I had the tears in my eyes, not so much about what he was saying, but because I saw the persecution of Barack Obama in this country, in our country, in the United States, and how Mitt Romney and all the Republicans were trying to get us to believe that he was putting Israel under the bus. And to see the camaraderie and the respect and the accolades that he got from the Israeli people, it was absolutely incredible for me. And I thought to myself, wow, this is the same reason why all those black people, all those brown people, all those Chinese people lined up, and all those immigrants that the Republicans seem to not like, and all those women that they seem to be obsessed with them, lined up for hours to vote for Barack Obama. So we're seeing it as a people here. The politicians on the other side are not getting it. The international world is getting it because he's simply trying to make the country a more kinder, gentler place. And to get rid of crazies like Michelle Bachmann, who is talking about the president is paying somebody to walk his dog and has 5 chefs on Air Force One, even Bill O'Reilly on Fox called her out on it and said she lied, and it's small stuff. Don't sweat the small stuff. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on that before we get into all the real estate things.
Diana, I admire and appreciate your passion, but I'll just remind you that hate is hate, and hate is not crazy. You have crazy people, and then you have hateful people, and hateful people don't love themselves. They always have to hate. So they hate anything. They hate dogs. They hate cats. They hate people that are different from them. They hate cupcakes. Understand? So you're talking about that news. Fox, on the same day that he was getting that, while the news was still breaking, Fox was still putting out news to say that Barack Obama is threatening the security of Israel.
Amen.
Because he's suggesting that they need to be more civilized and more reasonable in the way that they're dealing with the Palestinians. So, we're not going to change it.
Yeah.
We have to educate. We have to build better community of informed people rather than trying to stop the hatred and the anger from because they're informed. They're well informed. What they do is take the information and twist it around.
Right.
Mislead those people who are looking for answers and who are also disenfranchised. Those people, Americans who feel they're entitled, and I'm talking about, not poor people. I'm talking about Americans who believe that because I'm an American, I'm entitled to a certain quality of life, and I'm not experiencing it. Must be the immigrants' fault.
Okay. Yes, because the immigrants come and take away their jobs.
Exactly.
Okay. There's a lot of hype this week. Even yesterday I heard, the real estate thing, your value of your property is up 16%. And I'm going, oops. Are we trying to create another bubble here? Are we trying to do what we did in 07 and 06? Or what are we really trying to do? Are we really thinking about the people whose value of their property is still underwater? I would like to get your thoughts on that particular issue because I think it's absolutely insane.
Well, for those people who don't know, I have a background in real estate for 20 years. I was a home buyer advocate. I educated first-time buyers about the home buying process, help them to get their financing, and if in necessary cases, put them in touch with real estate people, help them to work on their credit and understand the whole process. And when I started 25 years ago, I believe that home ownership was one of the best investments you could make because you have to live somewhere. So
exactly.
rather than paying rent and somebody else's mortgage, instead invested in owning your own home, you would participate in the appreciation of that property over time. You would get the tax benefits that are allowed for paying the interest on that property as well as the property taxes.
Right.
And it was a good investment.
Right.
Now, today, we're actually in a similar circumstance where back then, 25 years ago, the market had crashed maybe 5 or 6 years before. It was in somewhat of a recovery. So I'm very, very familiar with what's going on right now.
Right.
And in terms of the news, it's all sales. It's about people trying to push real estate and over-hyping it. They're saying it's improving and it's rocketing, but it's not.
Okay.
The fundamental problem that everybody needs to be aware of, that there's still a significant amount of properties that are underwater, have not modified are due to be foreclosed on, but the banks don't want to flood the market with those properties.
Right.
So instead, they're leaving these people in these homes. These people in these homes are happy to stay in the home, pay the light bill, pay the water bill, not pay the mortgage, not pay the maintenance fee, not pay the insurance, and that has to be chopped up if you want to, if I want a better word, or anything can happen. So, is there appreciation? Yes. There's an appreciation because there's an artificial limit to the amount of properties that are on the market, but there is a ton of properties that will eventually come on the market, and if they came on quickly, they'll cause the values to fall, but if they come on slowly, it's going to take at least another 5 or 6 years for that inventory to be used up. So if you can buy, and rather than paying rent, you can afford to buy something and keep your payment in the same range, go for it. If you're buying because you're afraid that the price is going to escalate and you're going to go outside of your what you can afford, don't do it. You're making a big mistake. You can continue to wait, continue to prepare yourself, and if you're an investor, the opportunities are only in buying property that you can rehabilitate to put back on the market. But if you're buying straight from the appreciation aspect, you're going to be mistaken.
Wow. Okay. All right. So, is there? So the recovery basically is artificial, based on what they're telling us. I think.
Yes. The recovery is artificial because the recovery is that if a home buyer goes to a real estate agent now, and the real estate agent goes in the computer, she will tell you that there's only 50 or 60 houses in a certain neighborhood that's available when normally there would have been 100 or 120.
Okay.
But in fact, there's maybe 500 or 600 houses in that neighborhood that the people are living in the house, not paying a mortgage, and the house is not on the market.
Right.
That house is not representing a viable property that can be considered in terms of its value. We know that house is a distressed property, going to be sold, going to be foreclosed on the bank or sold in a short sale, significantly lower value than the other houses around it. So even though it's not on the market right now, when it does come on the market, it's going to be a distressed sale. So you cannot consider that. You have to they're not considering those properties. And what I'm encouraging your audience to realize is that you, as a home buyer, must consider the fact that any area buying a property in now, there are significant amounts of those homes that they look fine. There's no for sale sign in the yard. It's not abandoned. People live there. They pay the light. They cut those lawns. They take care of the home. But the mortgage is in trouble. And that those properties still have not been dealt with or addressed. They're not going to modify them. It's very unlikely that they'll modify them. And they're going to eventually have to foreclose on them. They're not rushing foreclosure because they don't want to create an oversupply in the market.
Right. Okay. So hence, that's the fake recovery, if you want to call it that. All right. In terms of people that are on the water, I mean, I hear all kind of things, and if you go onto that government website, there's various things that tells you that yes, they're asking these banks and mortgage companies, or what I call them, servicers. That's what they're called, servicers.
Exactly. That's exactly what. And I'm going to interrupt you a quick second, Diana, to just clarify the players. The major players are you, the homeowner, the person who owns the property and has the title. You're obligated to pay that note.
Right.
And then there is the mortgage company who is servicing that loan. They're calling you and saying, hey, you haven't paid your payment, please send in your payment. But then behind them is what they call the investor, the person who actually is the person who owes the money.
Right.
The big secret, the big wall, it's the federal government that are holding those notes. When we talk about the bank bailouts, what in fact happened is that the government bailed out those banks, asked them to continue servicing the debt.
Right.
They in turn became the end lender. So when your bank says, I cannot do a modification for you because the lender the investor is unwilling to make the modification.
Right.
It is in fact the federal government
Ah.
making that modification. But nobody wants to tell that tale. Nobody wants to discuss that. But the only way that the banks could have been bailed out was by the government bailing them out. They didn't bail them out and then take all the mortgages to them to call the government to pay the payment.
Right.
So they said, continue to service them. So on the face to the homeowner, they're still dealing with the bank. In the background, it's the federal government that's the investor. And the federal government is going to gently go ahead and foreclose on these properties over time, probably over the next 5 years. But it's certainly going to be something that the market has to deal with. It's not a horrible thing, but it's just the reality is it's not going to happen overnight.
Okay. All right. So when then a property is underwater and you hear, because earlier on this year, I think was like in January, there was an announcement saying, oh, now the federal government has approved that, people who are underwater should get their principal reduction and all that kind of stuff. And then when you call and you try to find out, boom, not so.
Yes. and it's politics. I mean, the fundamental straight answer, is you're going to have to foreclose on these homes. That in many cases, it's not, there's no legal structure would allow you to do. Okay, is there a modification program? Yes.
Okay.
However, the modification program is limited to only a certain percentage of loans.
Right.
If they agree to modify the entire portfolio of all of the underwater houses in the United States, there will be too much of a crash in terms of the value of those notes. So they prefer to hold on to the artificial notes and gently over time, have it balance itself out, rather than take the hit up front. I don't know if you're familiar with the crisis in Iceland and how they do.
Oh, yes, I am, because I watched that entire series that was run on Current TV or one of those channels, and I was totally blown away to see a little place like Iceland that affected the entire world.
Right.
I just could not believe it.
Well, the specific area of Iceland that I wanted to share with your viewers or your listeners is that in Iceland, instead of saying, hey, the banks are fundamental to the economy, and if we don't help out the banks, then the entire economy is going to crash, that Iceland said, our citizens are fundamental to the economy. So while we owe all of these investors over the world this money, we are going to default on our debt to these investors and instead restore our
People.
citizens, restore people. And at the time, it meant that nobody would offer credit to Iceland, and that Iceland was in a major crisis. But in the last 4 or 5 years, Iceland has recovered and is actually one of the most stable economy as compared to Europe and the United States. So
Yes.
again, it's different approaches, and in America, the bankers are considered to be more valuable than the citizens.
Obviously, because they're bailing out the banks and they're not bailing out the citizens of the country. And when you consider, okay, what I don't understand about this whole process is why a bank would want you to leave your house and then they turn around and sell that house to someone else for what you could have afforded to keep that mortgage for, because that is actually the current value of the property. I'm just lost at that one. I'm seriously lost. So maybe you can kind of make it a little simpler, because it doesn't make sense.
It's about the implication. It's about the law in the United States is based on precedent.
Right.
So if something happens, then somebody else can use that event to then set a new precedent. So there's a But if in the future somebody used the precedents that were set in this crisis, then it would change the way that they would deal with crises in the future. And the fundamental perspective as far as the economy and the capitalistic system goes is that money is the value and that people are the thing that you put to work in order to produce money. And if you change that around and say, okay, people are the value, and you use money to allow people to then create value, then you see a very different approach to life. I mean, look at the healthcare industry. The healthcare industry is comfortable charging people $4,000, $6,000 for a test that could be done for $500 because that is how they can justify and sustain the industry being a capitalistic money-making machine, and that if the people at the top are making enough money, then who cares about all the people who are suffering because the system is broken? And it may sound, I'm just talking straight. I'm not going to try and give you no comfortable understanding. It don't make no sense. You can't make sense out of nonsense.
Exactly, because I'm saying they want you to leave your house, and then they're going to say, there was one person I spoke with who actually was forced out of her condo, and then they basically gave away the condo to somebody else. And I thought to myself, but that makes absolutely no sense.
It makes no sense because you're thinking that people are the value in your life, in your world.
In my world, people are valuable.
In your world, people are value. In their world, assets are value, and you have to use the assets to control people. So the whole process of calling her out to the house is to demonstrate to her that we are the bank, we have the power, and that giving it to an investor and say, we are here as a bank to support investment. We're willing to lend you the money again so you can continue to invest because we value investors, but we don't value people.
Wow. That's kind of a sad, very sad commentary, don't you think? I mean, because this...
sorry to speak to you, but this is, Diana, if we accept it and know that is the truth, then we can now say, okay, this is how the system runs, so let me go ahead and run the system. This is how we say, okay, why not file bankruptcy if you are sitting out there with a whole ton of debt sitting on top of you? File bankruptcy and get rid of the debt and move on with your life. But then you feel, I want to do the right thing. Do the right thing for who? For the bank?
For the bank, yeah. For the bank, not for yourself. But I guess some people, because I've actually heard that same argument. I was saying that to someone and they said, I don't want to file bankruptcy because it's going to be on my record. And I'm like, what? Who cares? Nobody cares. Who knows you? Nobody knows you.
and the bank don't care either. If you file bankruptcy today, the bank won't talk to you, but within 6 to 8 months, you can start reestablishing your credit. Exactly.
So it's not that 7-year. I think a lot of people are scared of that 7-year thing. I will never get any credit in 7 years. But you see, I'm one of those people who when I credit something, it has to be really, really important because otherwise cash is king. Okay. Because if I don't have the cash to buy the thing, I tell myself you cannot afford it. So leave it alone and go. Keep on moving. That's what just I tell myself. But I find a lot of people are scared of that 7-year thing where they figure, okay, 7 year I'd be blind, can't credit anything. And
Not true.
Okay. So that's not true.
Let me explain this to your listeners, and I know this from personal experience.
Okay.
If you file a bankruptcy, I'm speaking specifically over Chapter 7.
Chapter 7,
Chapter 7 says you're wiping out everything. I can't afford to pay anybody. I'm going to start over fresh.
Okay.
What happens is that within 6 months, you can get what's called a secured credit card.
Okay.
So you give the bank $300, and they'll give you a $300 credit limit. If you don't pay them, they have your $300 already. No, they don't lose anything. They're happy to give you this. They get to charge you a slight interest rate on your own money. You gave them $300, they gave you $300 credit, and then they charge you 15% on that. But they only charge you if you keep a balance. So every month you use $300 and you pay off the $300, you actually don't incur any interest charges. So what happens is that within 6 months after that, so it took you 6 months before they would give you the secured credit card, and then another 6 months later, you'd have started reestablishing your credit. Within 6 months, within another year of that point, FHA, which is the Federal Housing Administration, will give you a mortgage.
Oh.
You can buy a home within 2 years of filing a Chapter 7 bankruptcy.
Wow.
Provided you start to reestablish your credit, which you can start immediately 6 months after having filed, been discharged of the debt. Right?
Okay.
The other part, as far as the 7 years, it just simply means that it stays on your record that you filed a bankruptcy. But it being on your record does not prohibit you from being qualified for credit, from being somebody considering you a good liability. So if you're sitting there with, $2,500 worth of medical bills and $500 worth of cell phone bills and 2 or 3 credit cards that they're just disputing and they're not willing to pay, is a much higher, considered a much greater risk. Why? Because bankruptcy is actually considered a responsible action to dealing with your debt. It is what the law allows you to do, whereas when you ignore it and just say, well, I'm not going to pay these few bills, it means that you're irresponsible because you haven't taken any action.
Okay. So when someone decides to file bankruptcy, though, the next thing is that, okay, it's too expensive to do this. I have to go pay a lawyer $5,000 to do this. I don't have $5,000.
Absolutely not. I have a lady, she charges $250.
Wow.
She is what you call a document processor. And she will just, you tell her what you owe, you tell her, she sits with you, she is very clear to explain that she's not an attorney, and she cannot give you legal advice.
Right.
But as far as the advice goes, you simply need to know that, no, let us be clear. If you're sitting on $40,000 or $50,000 cash in the bank, if you have, 3 or 4 cars fully paid off, or if you have real estate and other assets, and you're sitting there with a lot of those stuff, then a Chapter 7 is not your option.
Right.
But if you're sitting there with, $3,000 in the bank and a whole heap of debt, and just thinking, well, I own this house, but I'm completely upside down, you need to wake up to the reality that you're actually, you're in the negative and not the positive, and therefore filing a bankruptcy could be a legitimate way to at least get to zero so you can start working towards putting your life back together.
Okay. All right. My special guest inside of the Diana Wright Show live this morning is Dax Dunn, and we're talking about something that everyone aspires to, owning their own house, because to me, you make it a home. It is a house that you're buying. So you buy a house, and everyone's dream is to own that house, so you can decorate it the way you want. You can paint it the way you want. You can bore any amount of holes you want to punch into the walls. It's okay. But once you take on that responsibility and that commitment, there are lots of other things that come into play, like the crash. And now the house that you paid $500,000 for is only worth $200,000. So what do? What would be the advice in terms of what you do? And of course, it's definitely upside down because it's only worth $200,000. And even if you had a business, and that business is like that, wouldn't you get out of that business, or would you continue to try to keep the business? So my question is, do you try to keep that property and pray that the value goes up, or do you try to get out of it? That would be my question.
I'm gonna answer the question this way.
Okay.
And this is a generality. If anybody takes this advice and says Dax says, then they're not being very smart.
Okay.
I'm giving you 3 general scenarios that the average listener or person watching find themselves in. The number 1 scenario is that you bought the house as an investment, you've struggled for the last 4 or 5 years to keep the house, you can no longer afford to make the payment, and you stop making the payment for probably the last 6 months or longer.
Right.
Okay? If you find yourself in that position and you're upside down, you're underwater, what you need to realize is that if you're any more than $30,000 to $40,000 upside down, you're going to continue struggling. You're going to then end up waiting 5 or 6 years before the value returns to where you actually have no value, and then you're going to be starting all over. So you'd have wasted 5 years of trying to keep that house. And I'm being straight. That person I just described is better off giving up the house in low foreclosure so that they don't have a foreclosure on their credit, walk away and go and rent something for the next 2 years, and then they can probably go ahead and buy back a house for less than what they owe on the existing house. So that's number one.
Okay.
Number two is the person who is in a house and they're at the point where they can't afford to keep paying the payment, and they realize that they're underwater, so their credit is still good. They have been making the payment, and they're still making that mortgage payment, but they realize that the value of the house is around them. What people are buying and selling their houses for, less than what they don't have any equity. They're still upside down.
Right.
That person would want to list the house to sell it or to sell the house, get out of that house, because by selling the house, the bank who has the mortgage is going to be forced to take the hit and then allow them to relieve them from that house. So they're not telling the bank, I can't afford to pay. They're saying to the bank, I don't need to keep this house. I need to get out of it. The bank will then have to negotiate with a new buyer, because that new buyer is going to say, I'm willing to pay this for the house, but this is what it's worth. Therefore, I can only pay what it's worth. And the bank will then take the hit on that house, relieve the existing homeowner, and allow them to be free to go buy something else.
Okay.
Right? And then the third scenario is that you're in a house that the equity is there. You can actually, you have equity in the house. You bought it long enough ago, but your personal economic situation has changed. You don't have the job, not making as much money as you were making before.
Right.
So you don't want to lose the equity in that house. In that case, move out of the house, rent the house to somebody else who can afford to make that payment.
Okay.
Find somewhere that you can afford to live in, and hopefully over time your financial situation will improve, and then you can go back and live in the house later on. Now that's just a quick overview. Everybody's case is different. I am no longer in the real estate industry. I have no skin in the game. I'm not trying to generate any business. I'm just offering, from my perspective, that's what I see as the general options that most people have.
Okay, there's another set of people that you did not address in that column there, Dax. It's someone who is in their house, it's in foreclosure, they're paying the lawyer to sort it out. So obviously they're not paying any mortgage. The property is upside down and everybody knows it, right? What would that person be opting to do?
That person is in the first category. That person is in the first category where they're not paying the mortgage, and they're sitting in that home, and it's on a financial level. My advice is quite simple: move out to that house and let the bank take it. But what I'm saying is, on an emotional level, now you're sitting in the house saying, I am hoping for some miracle, and my advice to you right now, in terms of it's not going to happen. If you can continue living there, not paying the mortgage, then enjoy it for as long as you can, but realize that at some point, you're going to experience a foreclosure, you're going to be evicted from that property, and you're going to have to then move into something else. So if you can afford to move now, move, get it behind you, and move on. If you can't afford to move right now, stay in there and enjoy, not paying any payment. But don't pay the lawyer too much. If you pay the lawyer any more than $500 or $300 a month, then you're probably paying too much, because whether you pay that lawyer or not, there's very little that's going to happen with that property right now.
So what about that? What about that short sale thing? Which, I've seen other people have short sale, and the short sale stays there forever and ever, and nobody buys the property.
Well, no. Today, if you did it as a short sale, you actually find that it will go a lot faster than you think, because what's happening is that, look, the crisis started 7 years ago.
Right.
Since then, realize that there's a whole set of 17-year-olds that are now 24, 25 years old. We're out there, two families, who they got married and they're having kids, and they're able to afford to buy that house. So there's a whole pool of people that came into the home buying market in the last 7 years that is going to drive, the market. But the reality is that if all of the houses that were underwater came into the market, there's not enough of those new home buyers, but there is a pool of new home buyers. So if you put the house on the market because of the artificial restriction where there's not that many houses on the market, it will go, today it will move a lot quicker than it would have moved 2 years ago.
Okay, I got you. Okay. All right, let's I wanted to ask you something about paid. I heard this yesterday, and I didn't know that the banks were now in the payday loan business. And I just realized that yesterday they are in the business. There's a lot of questions coming up about it because, the banks are saying, oh, well, we're charging less interest than the man down the street who did the payday loan. And, we are legitimate businesses and all that kind of stuff. But everybody's watching to see where it goes, because people are beginning to complain that the bank is, okay, say for instance, my paycheck is $10. And, when I borrow $10 from the bank and when my paycheck comes, my paycheck is not exactly $10 anymore. It's $8. The bank still goes ahead, takes that $10, even though they know you only have $8. What is that about? Have you heard about this? Because I heard about it yesterday and I was totally shocked, actually.
I grew up and my dad was a banker. He worked for Scotia Bank in Jamaica.
Oh, okay.
And every time we have these conversations, he refuses to understand that banking in Jamaica, banking in Canada, banking in so many other countries in the world is different from banking in the United States. In the United States, it's the gangsters that are the banksters. The banks are realizing payday loans have been around for the longest time. It has been where the loan sharks live.
Yes, exactly what I thought.
Right. So it became a very formal industry, years ago, and you'd have the check cashing stores were very closely linked to a lot of these payday loans, but the type of interest they charge is all close to 360%
yes.
a year.
Right.
So we're paying on those kind of loans. And all that happened is that the bank who was doing the same thing with our real estate investments by, leveraging them highly, because that has collapsed. Now they have to look for other ways to make these astronomical returns on their money, and it's very logical for them to get into the payday loans. And as I said, they're going, until the regulations change, then there's nothing that's going to change. The banks don't have no shame in terms of trying to make as much as they can off of people, even if it means that the people don't have the money to buy groceries.
Welcome once again to the Diana Wright Show Live. My special guest this morning, it's Friday and it's Dax Dunn here with us. And we're talking about the news and everything that's happening or happened this week. And we're kind of giving you a roundup and some advice of things that you should and should not be doing. I want to go to Cyprus for a minute, because I'm sure you know what's going on in Cyprus. I heard this morning that the plan is being changed because the people came out and demonstrated and were so pissed off that they're not paying the 10% levy that the bank wanted to charge them in order for those banks to be bailed out by Germany and the rest of the Europe, EU. Okay? So they're changing the plan now. it's going to take a couple of days. So the banks in Cyprus actually have been closed for the past entire week. And I just thought to myself, I wonder what would happen if the U.S. government came out and said, all the deposits that you have in the bank, you are going to be charged 10% because our banks are no good. They're a bunch of thieves and we have to bail them out. How would Americans really respond to something like that? And it's been toiling in my head because I thought to myself, no way that could happen here, because people, even though those people demonstrated and they got it changed, they even, the finance minister went to Russia and Russia says, I'm not helping you, because basically in Cyprus, which a lot of people did not know, is a financial haven for rich Russians to put their money to pay no taxes in Russia. Found out this week about that. So I wondered how do you feel and think about this?
Well, for me, the whole idea is that, you cannot fix, it's like a house that's built on sand. and all the efforts you make to prop it up, it will never stand. It will fall. It may fall slowly. It may fall quickly. It may fall gradually, but it's going to fall. So the situation in Greece is that for so long, it has been an economy that has been propped up by loans, and that nobody's going to think about. If the question you asked about 10% in terms
in Cyprus, yes, in Cyprus. Greece was the one that was earlier on, but Cyprus is now that little country that is not even as big as Virginia in America is creating a whole set of jitters in the entire Europe and of course in the United States, because the first day it happened, the stock market here went down like I think 100 points or something. So that is the thing. How does a little country like Cyprus affect the global market like this? Is it because it's similar to a Switzerland or a Cayman Islands? Is that the reason? Or is it just that the bankers are just not doing what they're supposed to be doing?
Well, the thing is that what we have is a global financial economy, and that is when we this is something that Jamaicans can totally relate to. When you deal with the IMF and the international, which is the International Money Fund, the World Bank, and all of these organizations, they have a global financial system,
right.
And what the system is built on is the perception of value. You can print as much money as you want. So in the U.S., there is no need to charge 10% to people because all you do is print more money, and therefore people pay it in inflation. So we are handling the problem in America by the Federal Reserve continuing to print money and continue to dump money into the thing. And I'm no expert on this, but
yes.
I can say to you without a doubt, the fact that you have a Federal Reserve that can consistently pump money into the market, where is that money coming from? If America is in debt and they're printing more money, where is that money coming from? It's not.
It's coming from the Feds, the Federal Reserve, the Federal Reserve, the printers of money.
Exactly. So in America, instead of charging the consumers and the account holders and the people who have their money in the bank the penalty, all you do is just have the government print more money so that your money is devalued. So inflation is eating up more than 10% of what we have. Think about it, Diana. Every single person listening to this radio show, except if they're in some kind of banking or internet business, is worth less today than they were worth 8 to 10 years ago.
Yeah, truly. But all the rich people gained all their money back in the stock market, though.
Well, okay.
They all did.
Well, stock market, internet, and if you're in the banking business,
yes, all the bankers,
and healthcare. But for people who are working and saving and investing their money from a consumer point of view, they're no better off than they were 8 to 10 years ago. They're actually much worse off.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Okay, I want to shift gears and just run through some of the stories of the week that I thought were quite interesting. Karl Rove and Sarah Palin getting into a fight about what she said at CPAC. And then there is that rape case that truly saddened me in Ohio that actually divided that community. The 2 young men were found guilty, and they now have to be listed as offenders, rape offenders. And I thought, and of course there was a father of the black young man that was convicted. He was so torn because he kept blaming himself and said, I am to blame for this because I was not around for my son. As a father, how do you respond to someone like that?
Boy, Diana, I'm a father of a girl and a boy. And I can understand it from both sides. If I had a daughter that was drunk and raped, I would be very hurt, offended, and angry about it. If I had a son that was, thinking, oh, this girl is, she wants it, and, that situation like that, can fully understand it. But for me, I think it's wrong. I do not believe that it's justified, that they were all friends, partying and hanging out. It wasn't where these guys went and caught this girl and brought her there. It was a out of control situation, and the boys were wrong, but I don't think that they were, I don't think that the punishment fits the crime. They have spent a lot of time and energy. I know that they're remorseful, and in terms of the damages to the young lady, I think her reputation has been damaged, and that everybody understands that. I don't know if I'm making any sense, but as a father, I feel the same way. I would feel equally responsible, but as somebody to advise him, it don't make sense to take the guilt on. All you can do is help your son recover, and that, the good thing is it's not gone away for life. It's what, a year and a half?
Yes, it's just a year, and they have to do community service. But the bad part for me that I thought was, is the registry, because when you're registered, it just ruins your life. It truly does. I've seen people with young men who were accused of rape wrongfully or rightfully so, and their life has been just a living hell. So
it's not an easy situation, but as I say, I don't think I'm not in agreement with the verdict. I think that they were wrong. I certainly am not defending them. I'm not defending them, but I don't think that the punishment fits the crime.
Okay.
And especially with the long-term record,
Yes, the registry part I thought was really harsh on the judge's part. So anyway, we're coming up to 20 minutes after 11 o'clock. This is the Diana Wright Show Live. Don't forget that our crusade, I Love Me, and your day for you to celebrate it more than you've ever celebrated it before is April 30th, International I Love Me Day. And we thank you and welcome you from around the world and in the United States. Dax is our special guest, and we're just kind of rummaging through all the news of the week and throw our thoughts out and, see how you feel about what we're saying. Okay, the grand installation of the Pope, the inauguration of the Pope, to me was another wow big story. And why it was wow for me is to see the Pope, one, kind of just winging his script, not sticking to the script or the status quo. He did not go into that Pope security mobile, and he also came out of the car and actually kissed a disabled man that was there wanting to touch him. And I just thought to myself, this guy is just different from everybody else who I've ever seen. Even John Paul, when he was Pope, he was very warm and, interactive with people. But this guy just seemed like he's, so totally different. And then to hear the letters and the thoughts that he had with the woman that he was in love with and wanted to marry, and he had to choose between her and also he chose the priesthood instead and celibacy. And then on top of that, his sister was actually praying for him not to be Pope. But she said, well, the Holy Spirit did not listen to me, So I thought the whole week and the whole past 3 weeks of the whole papacy has been so interesting, filled with pomp and pageantry, and he refuses to just even get into the norm of what is happening. And then, of course, there's an interview that came out about him, talking about priests who want to get married, and he believes that if a priest makes a woman pregnant, he needs to quit, and if he don't think he can be totally celibate, he needs to get out of the priesthood. I mean, he is just one of those different guys. So, I know you're probably not Catholic, but I'm not Catholic either, but I just got caught up in the whole thing, and liking this guy.
Well, I also heard that years ago, not recently, he actually kissed the feet of some AIDS victims.
Oh, yes,
demonstrating
yes,
his support for the need people to be more sympathetic to the whole AIDS cause and less discriminatory. So, for me, my question began with the resignation. That I still don't understand the explanation as to why the Pope, the previous Pope, had to resign. And I consider that there is something more to that story than just
meets the
feeling
eye.
health, because I've never seen a healthy Pope.
Well, that's true. We've all grown up on popes that are old. Yes.
Yeah.
And this one is old too, because he's 76. But I think Pope Benedict, in reference to Pope Benedict the 16th, he resigned, and I thought he was a humble and courageous man to give up power, because the Pope is indeed a powerful man. And I thought, I respected his humility, but I still questioned the fact that the rumors were that he did not want to deal with the sex abuse scandal of the church. So he decided that, look, I am old, I am weak anyway, so let me just give this up. Okay? So that's what people are saying.
Yeah, so therefore the scandals are still there, and I like to be an optimist, so I would like to believe that this new guy is going to be ready to tackle these things, and his previous history and his attitude seems like he's willing to think outside the box and with a much more, practical and more open-minded approach. So let's hope that good things happen from it.
Okay. All right. Another big story this week was the story coming out of the Philadelphia Magazine that says being white in Philly. And I really did not understand that even Temple University in Philadelphia, because the guy who writes the story, his son goes to Temple University, and he said that the cop actually told him that where the young man was living, he should get him out of there because, they love to rob and kill college students. And then he interviewed several people that he changed their names and called them various things. I totally was annoyed with a woman who is a Russian student who is here temporarily for 2 years, I think, to study in Philadelphia. And she had the nerve to talk about the fact that, she noticed that black people, all they do is complain about them being minorities, and they sit on their porches and they spew out babies and they don't pay any taxes. And I'm going, girl, you're not even American. What is your story? Do you even understand the struggle? And I just wanted to get your thoughts on how you feel about someone coming in and making comments like that in a blanket form. It's just like saying all black people are no good,
Well, I'm going to actually, go down a very uncomfortable road, because I remember when I came here as a Jamaican, many times at that time. Today I'm a black man in America, and I know that and I accept that. But at that time, not me particularly, but people around me, family members would identify with, we're not the black American, we are Jamaican. And as if that held some kind of difference. And there was that whole misunderstanding of black American or African American culture to say, oh, they complain so much they're not willing to do the work and create opportunities for themselves. And
right.
So, as you live here long enough, you realize that it's a much more complicated situation. And unfortunately, we live in the era of sound bites, where people want to make these short, simplistic, comments to try and explain what is years and years of mistrust and frustration that leads to, communities that are impoverished, that are blighted, that are very crime-ridden, and so the facts support the fact that there are very big, there are lots of African American communities that are full of, welfare recipients and who have a lot of children and are not very productive. Reality is also they didn't create that situation themselves. That situation was created by government and business and years of oppression that led to those results. So we need to look for a more comprehensive solution rather than being critical and looking at just, one person's one way and these stereotypical comments,
Yes. Okay. All right. Before I have one more story that I want us to deal with. I have quite a few more, but anyway, we'll just deal with this one because we're almost up to the hour of 11:30. Anyway, I was surprised this week that the surveys came out about online dating. First of all, 40 million people have already tried online dating in some form. And then 52% of men are doing online dating as opposed to women who are just 48%. I thought it would have been the reverse. And then they also said that 18 months is a time frame. If you find someone online, you can seek to get married in 18 months. And 17% of the couples that are actually online daters do get married. 17%. And the biggest number is the fact that the online dating industry is a $4 billion business. Not 4 million, 4 billion. I thought that was shocking. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm going to actually start with the I Love Me campaign and show you how it's completely related to this. That what you have is the idea that there are a lot of people looking for somebody to make them happy. But they're not willing to change their lives and make time to really find somebody to make them happy. So it's a convenient way to find these people. So number one, the 52% of men, unfortunately, as a man, I am spilling the beans on us guys. A lot of those guys are dating because not for a marriage, but because of, a hookup, so to speak. So,
Okay.
But a big percentage of those male online daters are actually just serial daters. They're meeting women looking for a man and they have a good time, but they keep moving on. So
Right.
they're serial daters.
Okay. Serial daters. Okay.
That's all they are. I'm not suggesting that every single man, the entire 52%. I'm saying that at least 10 to 15% of them are serial daters.
Okay,
If
all right.
decided I'm not going to get married, I would keep looking for somebody, and it's a large pool, easily picking. There's not a lot of effort. You put your picture up, you create a nice profile, and
And Dax, the fact that you mentioned the picture and the profile, the women who were on the interview complained, their biggest complaint was that people do not put up their correct picture of how they look now. They give you false information. I thought that was funny, really funny. So someone will look, really nice on the picture, and when you see them, you're like, was that you on the picture, or it was somebody else?
Sure. And as I said, it's right back to the I Love Me campaign that the men and the women are not loving themselves enough to really say, you know what, I deserve to find somebody. I need to put the time and energy to, creating that space in my life to have a good relationship. And then go online and look for somebody. But again, there's a missing link there. But by the way,
Yes.
it's big business, and it's certainly not going to shrink in it by any stretch, because now you have the Jewish website, the farmers, you have the African American, the
Christian mingle.
Christian, you have all of these different categories. So see where people who have similar interests can go and find a dating service that complements that interest. So it's only going to get bigger.
It's only going to grow. Okay. It's only going to grow. It's only going to grow. Okay. All right, Dax. You know, when you're talking good stuff, the time just flies. All right. So hopeful next week we can get our Skype thing going on. And so actually people can see you, and, you know, because I think when people are seeing you, it's more real. Yeah. They see your face, they see your emotions while you're speaking about what you're speaking about, and they get more of a feeling of closeness to what you're saying. So we hope we can get that technical issue sorted out, by Wednesday, of course, because you'll be back with us on Wednesday. But on Wednesday, we talk about wellness and health and all the good things that make you, after you love yourself, you want to then take care of yourself. So we'll leave it at that. And we thank Dax so much for joining us this morning and helping us out to go through some of the wow stories that I thought were wow and big for the week. Okay, Dax, take care and have a great weekend.
And I thank you so much. Have a fantastic weekend to you and your viewers, and I look forward to catching up with you Wednesday. By the way, let's talk about wheat on Wednesday. The wheat industry.
Okay, the wheat industry. Wheat.
Prevalent in our foods. So let's talk.
And that has to do with the fact that a lot of people are talking about gluten-free right now, right?
There you go.
Okay, there you go. So see, I'm top of the game.
How do we?
Yeah. All right, so I'm on top of the game. Okay, so I make sure we get into gluten and wheat next week. All right. Okay, Dax, take care. Have a great weekend, and thanks for calling in. All right. Okay, so Dax will be my special guest every Friday. We're going to talk about the news and, you know, some of the things, light things, heavy things, medium things. Of course, you know, we didn't get through to all of them, but time moves real fast when you're having good fun and good conversation. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. And of course, you know, I won't see you again until Monday morning. So I wish you and ask you to have a blessed and happy weekend. And wherever you go to worship this weekend, whether it's in your house, watching television, going to church on Saturday or Sunday, Monday is indeed Passover. And of course, I'm sure I didn't point it out to you that the matzo that you love so much, because I really love matzo with butter. Butter. Yes, I did say butter. I don't do the margarine thing. If I'm eating butter, I'm going to eat Irish butter. Okay? All right. So the matzo with butter, you will find that the matzo that you're going to buy this weekend is a little bit more expensive than the matzo you bought last year. And also for those of you who are Jewish who are watching, all your little supplies that you have for your Passover gonna be a little bit more expensive this time. They already admitted it, but they know that you can't do without the stuff, so you're gonna buy it anyway. So we'll see what happens after the holidays and see how many people passed on some of the things they actually needed. So thank you so much for joining us, and hope you have a very, very blessed weekend. Stay prayed up, and don't forget to love yourself and teach your children to love themselves. April 30th, International I Love Me Day. Don't forget it. It is important to you, important to your life, and important for you to be a better you. And so we say adios, ciao, au revoir. And if you love something, set it free. If it comes back, it's yours. If it doesn't, it actually was never yours. Have a great, blessed, wonderful weekend, and keep your life feeling beautiful, not depressed, but always staying in the green light. Ciao. Okay. Wow.